Hello, everybody! Welcome back to another episode of The Gayest Generation, where we hear LGBTQ older adults speak for themselves. My name is Jacob, and every episode, we sit down with a different member of the LGBTQ community who laid the foundation for the freedoms we have today. Their stories, more than ever, must be heard. In this episode, we speak with Barron Evans. We chat about golden threads, plues, or people like us, and the importance of smoking ciggies with your sissy friends. This is The Gayest Generation.
Hello, I'm Barron Evans, and I am 68 years of age, and I identify as a gay man.
Well, I'm so excited to be here with you today. Where are you from?
Originally born in Bloomfield Hills, suburb of Detroit, and then moved after undergrad school out of Michigan, and then came back here some 45 years later, and that included 8 U.S. and 3 European stops along the way.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so that would be, you're growing up in the 60s and 70s in Bloomfield Hills.
I like to think of it as the 70s.
Thank you. As just the 70s.
Do not want to age more than I need to.
What is the 70s like in Bloomfield Hills? What is your family like?
Well, it was secure, with the broadest definition of what secure means. I think it was also this sense of this is a safe place to be. Now, in that period of time, especially elementary school, junior high school, there wasn't really a need to pronounce or declare because it just wasn't in the psyche that was even appropriate to do. So it wasn't trying to do I feel safe with my sexuality because I am in this place. So there wasn't that kind of counterpoint thing. But it was just a comfortable suburban lifestyle. Part of it growing up earlier was in Royal Oak. And then later on was in Bloomfield. And by the time I got to the Bloomfield stage, I was older. And I think I was probably then more aware of it. But I think certainly during the elementary years, which would have been the Royal Oak years, it was kind of a non-event. Mm-hmm. But yet I was discovering it in my own psyche. But never did I fear, as one might today, thinking about how safe am I coming out as a 12-year-old, as an example.
And in that universe, how did you come to even know what gay was? Is it something that you're hearing from your friends and families? Is it something that you're seeing represented on TV?
I think, and again, I'm even trying to think about the use of gay as jargon versus homosexual, and trying to put that in context of, I think homosexual was the descriptor of said population, if I recall it correctly. And I think being aware of it was more a function of what I'm going to call the very stereotypic behavior traits, for lack of a better way to characterize that.
And what were those traits?
Effeminate, flamboyant, lots of gesture, movement, potentially voice inflections that were not kind of steady state, for lack of a better way to describe it. And I'm thinking about certain people, and this is more the high school years, they just had a way of presenting themselves that you just felt, oh, this must be a homosexual, a.k.a. gay person. And it was sort of a self-assumption. You didn't, at least I didn't, validate it. Chose not to, was really none of my business. But I think we all walked through those periods of our years with a lot of assumptions that we made about a lot of different people.
Yeah.
What football players were about, what were people in the band about, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't think this was a unique one, but it was certainly one that you didn't talk about, like saying, hey, do you play clarinet?
Yeah. And I think you're touching on something that is so interesting about gay people across the board is, from a very young age, and if you disagree, please tell me, we learn to notice everything. And it's almost like a survival thing. It's like, am I comfortable here? And you're noticing how people put their hands, how people react to certain statements. You're figuring out this world of, okay, this is how jocks act. am I supposed to act like that? How do who am I really? There's this constant kind of noticing and observation skills that I think is a particular skill set that we have as gay people.
Yeah. Well, and I think, too, that in some cases, back to your opening question about how did it feel growing up in that suburban setting, I felt safe in probably demonstrating some of those behaviors. And when I say those behaviors, a couple examples. I always got a kick out of doing furniture moving around the house. So at any given time, mostly my mother, would just not understand why I felt this compulsion to change the living room furniture. Or on one random day, I decided to swap my brothers in my bedrooms. So those kinds of things were kind of thought about, I'm sure, in a circumspect way as a parent, my assumption. But yet there was never anything that was criticized about doing that kind of behavior. Another example might be things like cooking. I always maintained I like to eat, so what goes with eating? Cooking. So I just enjoyed cooking. And that was another one of those behaviors that was never, men don't do this. So I just never took it that wasn't a behavior that I should be able to exhibit.
Oh my gosh. I remember asking for an easy bake oven for Christmas. And then in the act of asking for it, I realized I shouldn't have. But I didn't know why. And then, of course, when it comes, it's a pink. And I'm like, oh, this is why. I just wanted to make cakes next to a really hot light bulb. But it's funny how we pick these things up. And whenever I ask, like, how did you learn what gay is? It's a loaded question because we learn little itsy bitsy pieces from everywhere. And how to act and how not to act. What kind of kid were you?
Very rambunctious. Certainly never was characterized as low energy. Quite the contrary. And actually quite delighted in it. I mean, I found myself to be quite tickled by myself sometimes because when everybody else was kind of slouching and bored and all that, I just didn't have time for that. I just thought, well, there's something else to do. There's something else to discover. What are y'all waiting for? And it just used to strike me as very, very amusing that was a behavior that, again, didn't put it in context of being homosexual or not. Just thought of it as, well, that's who I am. That's who I am as a person. And it's interesting that, years later, because I mentioned this, I think, to you previously, I had a brother that had cerebral palsy, and he was 4 years older, and I would have friends of my parents, now that I'm an adult, share with me some of their observations of me in that context of growing up. And they would say, I don't think your parents really knew how maybe challenging you had it, but at the same time, how you were the proverbial stiff upper lip younger kid that kept a lot of the energy and a lot of the just family connection going, even in spite of those difficult times, which clearly they were.
My next question for you was going to be, what was it about your life or who you are as a person that allowed you to be, as you put it, tickled by yourself? Which I think is such a gift. I relate to that. Kind of, it's an act of being your own friend. But that doesn't come naturally to everybody. Why did that come naturally to you? And is it in any relation to your family structure and your brother and et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I think that there's probably a lot of feeds that went into that self, sort of profiling. By the way, it's still true today.
Yeah.
I still do find myself doing things and all by myself in my home say, you just crack me up.
What a gift, though.
Well, as long as I'm not being seen by others that'll go, gift? Maybe not so much.
A loud gift.
Or a potentially going off the deep end gift. Those are some of my favorite gifts. But anyway, anyways. So back to that period of life. I think it was certainly the family structure because the things that I would imagined, that at least again through observation, I saw in other family units, brothers and sisters and siblings did things together. Yes, there were probably always age differences, but, they tended to always play games in the backyard together or go to things together. My brother and I never did that.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't because we weren't allowed. It was just that there was just such a different parallel that we were living.
Mm-hmm.
My parents opted to take him out of public schools in, I think it was 7th grade, put him in a private school, which is where he ultimately stayed the rest of his days. And so I think the self-entertainment part of me developed there.
Mm.
Plus, my dad lived overseas part of my growing up years.
Okay.
My mom went periodically to visit, but she was more or less the mother-father figure. And so I think that my way of, I don't want to use the word escape because I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
But my way of trying to keep sort of above water in my own head is, well, why not just laugh at something? Or why not just do something on your own? Or why not move the living room furniture around? Just because.
Mm-hmm.
Because it kept me feeling good and okay and leveled, if there's such a word.
There's something about what you're saying in having an imagination. Those Venn diagrams are somehow, they touch in some way.
Absolutely they do. And I think also that because my parents, when Dad would come back from his overseas business trips, there would always be those moments of what I'll call reintegration,
mm-hmm.
where obviously he had been in touch with my mother and she had kept him in touch with what the home, world was about. But I also think that he, with my mother, used to look at me and I say this self-depreciatingly, if there's such a word, they would marvel at my adaptability.
Mm-hmm.
And they would support me and they would give me comfort for, quote unquote, rising above it all.
Mm.
And so that was a reinforcing set of words and oftentimes behaviors that gave me permission to continue to be that person.
Yes.
In air quotes.
Wow. And what was the nature of your father's work abroad?
He was in the automotive industry. And so their company had plants in Germany, in England, and in Switzerland. So he had reason to go to those plants. And then as life afforded it, my father gave myself and my bestie from high school as a 16th birthday gift, a summer working in the German plant.
Oh my gosh. You're 16 years old,
16.
Abroad.
Mm-hmm.
And this is probably what?
So that would be maybe like 71, 72.
Okay, Germany's a certain kind of place in 71, 72.
Correct.
And where were you in Germany?
We were outside of Stuttgart in a little town.
Bavaria.
Near the, I'm trying to think, so the northwest part of Germany.
Okay.
Up there, near Stuttgart, and not far from the Air Force Base, but it was a small village, and we lived in a large rooming house / hotel, which in and of itself was part of the learning experience for me growing up.
I can only imagine.
Because the friend was certainly not gay, nor did I think of myself as gay, but yet we were going to be sharing a room together for the entire summer in this foreign country, working together and just doing life.
Yeah.
But doing it in a foreign country where neither of us knew the language. And so that was another whole glimpse into how you manage in this, because now at this point I'm 16, so I'm beginning to have a better sense of self, and I'm beginning to think, so there's going to be things, it was never an option to think about he and I, that was just not in the cards, nor did I desire it.
Yes.
But it was also a chance to think about, well, what does one do when one is in very close quarters and living in a context that probably isn't going to be very forgiving.
Yeah.
And I will tell you a story later that came later in life.
Oh, very exciting.
That this has a golden thread too.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
Well, certainly cultural at the pure geographic level of just different people who have different views of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point about, still early 70s, so the whole East Germany, West Germany, Berlin thing is still kind of unfolding in terms of the culture. We were obviously in West Germany, but the notion of a very, and I think this is a German nature, very black and white world. The world is very organized. The world has very structured ways in which it is designed.
Yes.
For all things, much less what do boys do and what do girls do. That just goes without saying.
Yes.
So there were just that piece of the culture. But then there was so what do you guys like to do when you don't work? What are your weekends? What, because they were always trying to be very helpful, to their credit, well, can we help you find things to do in the weekend? Well, yeah, you certainly can. So
please, yeah,
by all means, private tour guide, I'm on it. But so I think that was another sort of thing too, is that Doug wanted to, and that was his name, Doug, still is today. He wanted to go do real boy things, again in air quotes.
Like nature stuff.
Yeah, or fly a plane, or do other things. I didn't necessarily object, but it wasn't the first thing on my to-do list, And so you'd say, well, Barron, what was your to-do list? Well, I'd like to do things like go to botanical gardens.
Sure.
Or go to, what's happening in the city of Stuttgart? It's a city. What's going on in the city? Where we're going to eat.
Yes.
Because again, back to the
important
self-sufficiency, gotta eat. So, there was just subtleties within those choices, both the work and the free time, that informed these are just different species of boys.
Yes.
But nobody, we never had a calling out by anybody. We never had a falling out between the two of us, because I think we both also knew that we only really had each other to fall back on.
Yes.
And that, yes, there were probably things that we did both think about during the course of that summer, but we just also knew it would do neither of us any good to try to do something about that.
We'll keep our heads down, we'll do our work, and we'll have our little Germany moment.
We'll just enjoy our little summer away.
Yes.
And have all kinds of tales to go back to high school with.
I am asking so many questions about Germany because I also spent some time in Germany during college. And I had a wonderful time. I learned so much. I am so thankful for my time abroad. But Germans are certain people.
Yeah.
I could never get over the German staring.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm from Saginaw, and I'm like, why are you looking at me? What?
Yeah.
I'm wiping something on my face. Yeah. I'm like, what you looking at, old man?
Yeah.
What you doing over there?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's just...
that's who they are.
Yeah.
Well, and as a segue to many years later, when I had a Rotary scholarship in Finland.
Ooh.
Not too dissimilar in terms of prototypes of stare, lock eye, very straight and narrow, literally and figuratively, kinds of humanity there as well. So it's kind of funny when I think about just those two in my earlier years thinking, yeah, I never did something in Italy, which would have been just bonkers. Now, I did live in Belgium in my professional life,
fabulous.
Which gave me access to France quite a bit. So that opened up new, sort of perspectives too.
Yes. New perspectives.
Yeah.
It's also, as a young gay person, learning those new perspectives and going, there really is a whole world out there.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it's funny you bring that up because I know that you asked earlier about in the high school years kind of what informed or what. I was also acutely aware of, and I think I mentioned this to you when we talked, there was a certain neighborhood in the Detroit area in Highland Park, and there was a certain bar, I think, called Menjo's.
Sure. Okay, shout out Menjo's.
Yeah.
To this day.
And I never went in those years, but I always knew it existed for people like us.
Yes.
As we call them, plues. And so...
I have written on this piece of paper, what is a plue?
Yeah.
People like us.
Yep. Yeah, it's just a code for that.
Yeah.
But so I did know those existed as places to go in my growing up years, but I never really thought of physically walking in a place, much less even imagining, let's assume I had my driver's license at this point, much less imagining going by myself. It just would never have occurred to me in those years to go by myself.
Oh my gosh.
Just too much to fear, too much of the unknown.
Yep.
So that's sort of back to the notion of what was safe, what was secure growing up in the burbs. That was it. Mm-hmm. I could have probably gone, but I always would have felt safer staying where I knew I belonged, where I was safe.
And it's a two-headed thing, right? It's like, I'm terrified that this place exists, but I feel safe that this place exists because if I ever did want to go,
correct,
I could.
Yeah, it's always back there in the head, kind of doing the little nibble, if you want. And it was funny years later going to college in Michigan as an undergrad and meeting other people from the sort of Detroit metro area and hearing all of our respective stories about the Menjo saga and who did go and what did you do, you know,
with who,
and how often.
So it does sound like during this time, the later high school years, you're in conversation with what appears to be some fellow Plues.
Yes, and I think I shared with you, and this is rather a silly example, but again, I'll share it since we're doing the therapy session here. This thing that I discovered, which may or may not have been a Plue sign, but I also found that other guys in high school that used to wear their shirts unbuttoned struck me as very enticing, very interesting.
Yes.
And in my silly little pea brain at that ripe old age of 16 or 17, I just thought that was very exciting. And started thinking, well, maybe that's what you do. So then I started doing it. And then I started having interactions with other guys that did it. Now, what does that really mean? Never meant a damn thing. But in hindsight, in that moment, I thought, well, I don't see everybody doing this, but I see select guys doing this. So I wonder if this is part of that culture that a Plue lives, but we just don't talk about it. And so it was silly and random. And then I think I shared with you one of my other early signs was being reinforced in that particular little key insight when I would see Jim Morrison at the Doors on the Ed Sullivan Show, clearly dating myself. Ooh. But just finding Jim Morrison with his very open collared shirts and just thinking, and he's doing this on the Ed Sullivan Show where all of America can watch, then it must be okay.
Writhing about on TV. You're like, oh, what's that?
Well, and adding insult to injury is that what was one and where was one usually on Sunday night, sitting at home with mom and dad watching it on TV.
Yes.
So it wasn't like we could, other than in our heads, have a little fantasy going on.
You're not like, Mom, are you seeing this?
Mom, rock on with Jimmy.
Yeah. Woo.
Yeah, that didn't happen in my house anyway.
Now, with these folks and your friends, are you having open conversations about your sexuality? Or is this kind of thing where we understand what's going on here, we're each other's tribe, and we're...
Certainly not in high school. I think that became much more literal in college years. Because again, I started not only seeing, but then having friendships with others that were clearly of the tribe. And finding myself thinking, well, college has always been set up to be that place of self-discovery, that place of, you know, learning who you are, oftentimes through the lens of other people and friendships that you have. So this will be a way to reinforce and organize the way that I think of me using the lens of other people. And so I would say by sophomore year, certainly, there was a tribe. We were aware of it. Some were practicing. I was yet to practice, but I was engaging. I was, you know, tippy-toeing, if you will, into that. I think I was almost at second base by the time I was a sophomore. And so it was kind of one of those things where it became more validating because of it. And by the way, I think I mentioned this to you, it was a small school. It was a small private college. So it wasn't a large university where you were essentially anonymous. You know, we were a small group of collegiate people, men and women. Yep. And so you couldn't kind of hide. And hide also meant you're seen with whom you hang out. And there were associations made by virtue of that as well.
Wow, I see.
Yeah, so that kind of became the self-affirmation personally, but then in some instances, never really, I'm going to say, called out, but identified again as who you go to party with, how do you spend your time, and who you're showing up at the bar with, kind of thing.
I see. I have written on my little outline here, when we first met, an image that you evoked that really has stuck with me, and I want to get this right. Smoking cigs with your sissy friends on the hill. Now that's a dream. Can you tell me a little bit about what that is?
I'm very frightened that you actually remembered that.
Oh, it was like a dream. I was like, I want to go smoke cigarettes with my sissy friends on the hill.
Well, again, keep in mind, as I've said earlier, that even having the label of sissy friends just wasn't even in the conversation. But it was that self-awareness aspect.
Yes.
It was some of those other people that you just knew were of the tribe, but you didn't need to validate it by asking, nor did you need to announce yourself. But when in the middle of, high school years, you would take a break, and I went to high school in Royal Oak, and there was a huge outdoor hill that was called The Hill. And so that's where we would escape to go have ciggies. And you just kind of knew who your peeps would be before you even got there.
Sure.
Because there were others that were there to use, the inflammatory others of today. But I didn't go smoke ciggies with the others. I smoked with the sissies.
Yeah.
And, by the way, that would be men and women. So there were the female whole contingent that were in the know, in the circle. But again, it wasn't validated, but you hung out with these people, so how else could you not assume that you were a part of the tribe because that's who you chose to spend time with? So, there was always a circle of boys and girls out there smoking, but it was always the same group, and you kind of knew where you fit in that sort of, breakout.
I understand.
Yep. And so that became another one of those, I'll call them comfort zone moments that you could always kind of fall back on. But there was never, and I'm trying to think back, I don't recall there was ever any conflict or word shared, much less fists, on any of those hill ciggy times. There just weren't. People had one objective, get a half a cigarette in before. The only thing that maybe played into that at all is when every so often a person during the school day would say, do we have time to go grab a fag?
Yeah. Oh. Well, we got a few out here.
Which for the Plu tribe was sort of, define fag for me.
Yeah.
But obviously you never ever said that. But that was the only thing in the moment that was kind of a awareness of, there's like a word that goes with cigarettes now, and that's what those people call them. Yeah. So again, ding,
Scooby-Doo
ding,
noise.
Ding, ding. Okay, got it.
Moving from high school into college, you said you went to a smaller private college.
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
To Olivet.
Yes. Okay.
South of Lansing.
And as you're beginning your college career, where are you at with your understanding of your queerness, and where are you at with your openness to share that with others?
Well, I think, as I alluded to a bit ago, that the discovery, so I went into choir because I'd done that in high school, and that seemed to be an affinity group that I was comfortable with. I certainly didn't go out for the football team. So again, back to those stereotypical things that you gravitate to because, you might, one, I enjoyed it, which I should put out foremost, I enjoyed it. But then two, there's a likelihood in my knowledge set as that 18, 19-year-old that Plus might be singers too. And might I say in hindsight, there were no shortage, men and women. But that became one more self-reinforcing thing, is that it became a way to say, oh, so you can have a good voice, you can be an authentic singer in a collegiate setting, and by the way, also have affiliations with other people of like-minded spirit. And that was just fine. That was just okay. Nobody was condemning it. There were no gay groups on campus at that point. Certainly are now, but there were none at that point. Certainly no gay bars in town. So if we decided to, and say we, went to other places, like up to Lansing or East Lansing, because there were gay bars. So, it only took, 15 years for Menjo's to catch up with me. But now I was doing it in East Lansing. Or me to catch up with Menjo's.
Yeah.
But
goes both ways.
that kind of place. So that's kind of then, because then you said, okay, well, who's going to go? Well, then once the people said, well, let's do it, as the old saying goes, there was no turning back.
Yes.
You just kind of knew who your tribe was. You didn't need to think about it. You didn't need to hide from it. But again, you weren't walking across campus, with the pink T-shirts and the flag on your forehead. It just wasn't that liberal of an outcalling or a need for that. But you just could also be very aware that, yes, there were certain prototypes. And I'll say that in the nicest ways, because now I'm going to segue into the Greek society world. When that becomes the next big stamp of approval or stamp of self-identification. What fraternity or what sorority am I going to pledge? And again, in the collegiate setting, in that time frame, that's how you began to affirm kind of who you were. Because, and they're still that way today, Greek societies do have certain personas, group personas, and if you were aware of yourself and you had a certain predilection for whom you wanted to affiliate with, you would probably pledge that fraternity or that sorority. So in a sort of weird twist of fate, yours truly pledged an all-female society.
Incredible. How was that perceived?
I'll try not to LOL right now.
Please do.
Oh, no. I'll blow this thing out. Well, and to give a little backstory to it, to give it more context, it wasn't just randomly one day I woke up and went, woohoo, that's what I'm going to do on this Wednesday. No. There was at least enough knowledge around campus that this one society, and it was actually chartered as a society, which was really interesting. I always, when I was a freshman, assumed it was a sorority because it was all females. But once I started getting into it, its charter actually was as a society.
Versus, so society means it's not a gendered thing.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And that was going back to like 1891 or some such thing when I was.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's a national society. But the other interesting thing about it, which makes me laugh even more, is that it had a reputation for being where the smart people pledge.
Okay.
Where the intellectuals go.
Ah, oui.
Now, but as I said, the backstory had more to do, and this really was part of the call, was that it was well known that this particular society was slowly going broke, that the financial wherewithal, either from the alumni support, endowments, whatever, was just not keeping up as it was with the others on campus. So the president at the time, female, sort of put out a thing as I started doing, and this I found was very amusing. Sororities always had teas, and fraternities had smokers. This particular society had tokers. Yes, I said that. Tokers.
I know a couple of those. Okay, what is a tea and what is a smoker?
Of course. You put the two together, and you can make all kinds of whimsical things happen.
Yeah.
Inclusive of the naming convention, toke.
Yes, indeed.
Since, again, we're talking the 70s. Just saying.
Yes.
So there was a band of We Merry Men that got together and said, I think we should go to a toker and see what that place is about.
Yeah.
And so I think there was probably 7 or 8 of us that did. And I think each of the fraternities, sororities, societies had 3 of their events prior to issuing their official pledge offers, if you will. And so I had gone to 2 others in normal, quote-unquote, normal fraternities. And then the 3rd one, I went to this toker. And I remember myself and my buddies at the time leaving going, OMG, this could be way too much fun.
Yeah.
There is just way too much upside not to do this.
Amazing.
And what was interesting about it was the women that were the ones that were actives at the time were not what you would call, and this is so horribly stereotypic, but I don't think it's anything that anybody didn't think or know. They were the intellectual women. They weren't the most popular or attractive women.
Sure.
So they thought they died and gone to heaven when a tribe like ours showed up at the door for that last ochre.
Yeah.
Oh my God, men.
There's boys here.
Yes, there's boys here. Cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, all that generated to us getting offers. And of, I think, the 7 of us that did it, 5 of the 7 decided to pledge. 2 didn't. And then a year later, I became the first male president.
Wow.
Of that.
So open up the door to that world for us.
Do you really want that door open?
I want to kick it down.
I've got people that want to listen to this someday. They may not want to hear this.
You can say as much or as little as you would like. But, there's a certain stereotype of debauchery. But this also is, you've described something that is completely new to me. So I would love to know what was it like?
Well, I think, the first sort of the pledging period, which, all of them do simultaneously, lasts like 6 weeks or whatever. A lot of the activities that we were subjected to were not terribly dissimilar to what all of them were. Probably a little more mild-mannered because, again, it had been all women previously. Now they had this whole new set of 5 men. They didn't quite know what their elasticity was with the guys.
Yes.
But they knew they weren't going to do what the guys were doing in the fraternities.
Sure.
That wasn't going to be happening. So it was sort of that interesting learn as you go, certainly for them, but then also for us as the pledgees to kind of figure out, so what does one do when one gets abandoned at Metro Airport?
Oh.
And it's not the worst thing in the world, but then it's like Tuesday night and it's midnight and you got a class tomorrow. And the actors thought that was kind of a cute little thing to do under the auspice of going with them to pick somebody up at the airport and then bye, push out the door. So it became this sort of interesting push and pull of, yes, it is Greek life. Yes, it is fun and whimsy in the context of what Greek life and pledging is meant to be. But it was also one great big social experiment by definition, because not only usins in it, but the actives in it, the school administration, and let's not even begin to talk about when local Kalamazoo newspapers, Lansing newspapers, Battle Creek newspapers started getting wind of it and wanted to come to campus to watch these specimens going through this.
Specimens.
Oh, yeah. We were actually called that one in, I think, one of the Battle Creek newspapers.
There's got to be a better word.
Well, at that time, apparently they thought that was the best word they could use because they weren't going to use that other word. And interestingly enough, I have to say this just to be totally, open and honest. Of we 5 that pledged last year, only 2 of us were gay. The other 3 were not.
Okay.
So again, I don't want to put the stereotype of that's where the gay boys went.
Yes.
Because it didn't. Because years later, don't I find out that in the fraternities, many gay men ended up coming out.
Ooh.
Years after college, but they did. So the thing that sort of opening of the door to your earlier question provided was, you know what, this is a time to be a leader. This isn't a time to be the first male class. This isn't the time to be the first male president. This is a time, as you're now in your sophomore going to junior year in college, to demonstrate leadership skills. And so I think that's where, if I hasten all the way back to, the self-tickle, self-entertainment person that I was, I afforded myself that right. I didn't go look for permission. I said, I am the right person. And a year later, I became that first male president.
Wow.
And never looked back. And so it was interesting then to have that then put in context of being the next year looking for new pledges. And suddenly we had 13, count them, 13 male pledges.
had mentioned San Francisco, I understand that you spent some time there yourself.
8 years.
8 years. And was this after college?
Yeah. This was the second career. My first career after grad school was in Boulder, Colorado.
Okay.
And that's when I really started actively playing.
Yes, letting your hair down a little bit.
Just being that granola guy and just saying, you know what, granola with the finger up, still is granola.
Gorp. I think that's the only nature-y word.
As it were. But then the second phase of that career step, which was in telecommunications, then took me to San Francisco.
Okay.
And then that was the 8 years that happened after the 5 years in Boulder.
San Francisco, to nobody's surprise, makes a constant reappearance on the podcast. What did San Francisco mean to you, and what was it like?
Well, to put it bluntly, like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah.
But in a way that, because I didn't live in the city proper, my office was in the city, but I lived out in a suburb called Walnut Creek.
Okay.
And so San Francisco was always that place that you just knew if you wanted to stay after work and go meet friends for a drink. Or the tea dances on Sundays, which was a whole epic unto itself, because God knows then you had to face Monday morning with whatever choices you made on Sunday night.
Yeah, can we reschedule those to Saturdays?
We do need that 24 hours to regroup.
Yeah.
But I think that just, and this started in Boulder for me, but I think that it really took off in the San Francisco years, because now I was becoming and I'll use this in air quotes, somewhat successful professional, but still able to live this lifestyle. Buy a home, have a partner that I cohabitated with, who met my parents.
Wow.
Yeah. And actually, he flew from San Francisco back here to Michigan, and my dad would take him to automotive events because he was I say this tongue-in-cheek, rocket science. He was actually a chemical engineer, and he was making, at that time, very new non-petroleum-based gasolines. He was from Belgium.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. And so my dad wanted to introduce him to people that potentially could help his career. So that then was a whole nother rubber stamp.
Yes.
In a whole different chapter of life that said, you can be professional, you can have a home, you can have a partner living with you, and oh, by the way, the parents can be okay with it. Now,
yes.
I remember coming out to them, and that's when I was living in San Francisco, and so I was probably still late 20s, early 30s at that point, so a little later. But that discussion with my parents, which took place in Christmas, when I was home in Michigan, was not easy, but it was time, because I had met this individual, and he and I were planning to cohabitate, and I just kind of knew that the handwriting was on the wall, that for my own self, just sanity, I needed to disclose that. And I'm sure my parents probably had observed it because, again, college years, they knew people they hung with. They'd see me in Boulder, Colorado when they'd come out of it. So, I mean, it probably wasn't new news, but now it was out of their kids' lips that it was being conveyed. And that, I think, gave them pause to go, okay, this is it. So then to fast forward to my dad asking this partner to come back and play in the business sandbox with him just blew my socks off.
Yeah.
I remember just thinking, I have fully arrived. I have fully arrived.
Yes.
You know, and it just was so delightful to be able to just know that that's where life was. So I think San Francisco did play a significant, what I'll call, launching pad for self-acceptance, just because by definition, the city was premise on that whole thing. And I think I mentioned this to you before, and although it's a New York-based book, I just literally finished yesterday the book Deplorable Men, and I returned it back to the library. And while it's more of a New York East Coast-based experience, a lot of its references are not dissimilar to what San Francisco references were for me in the 70s and 80s.
Well, we love a book recommendation here at the library. Can you tell us a little bit about the book?
Yeah, well, Deplorable Men is its name, and I'm not remembering the author at the top of my head, but it was a fairly new book. I think it was written in 23, first-time author. And it was, in essence, the storyline in parallel of three men in very, very different socioeconomic places in their lives that all respectively got busted by the police in a bar called Caesars. There was just sort of, I guess, adjacent to Stonehenge Bar, as it was now, the more reputable. And so they were busted en masse. They were all put in jail because one of their economic strengths, one was released and sent off, but then had to face his own reality with his wife that he had been living a lie. Then the other two, and I won't give it all away, but then this book tracks these three very disparate profiles as they are experiencing self-discovery. And some of the woes, some of the triumphs that each of them experienced in the New York City years of the 70s.
Yeah, I'm putting that on my list.
Yeah, it's a must-read. Just because, like I say, I could have been reading it and it was about San Francisco.
Yes.
Just because there was a lot of that. But I feel so, back to the San Francisco part of the story, that I was so affirmed in those years living in San Francisco. This book doesn't quite get those three characters to the affirmation stage. They know who they are, but they still are being perceived by society as deviants.
I see.
Where in the San Francisco environment that I was living in the 80s and early 90s, that just wasn't the case.
Yes.
And you just didn't feel a sense of who's going to know. Who can I say? No, who can I go out with and not see my partner? You know, those just never were thoughts that, occurred to us.
There wasn't too much hiding going on, is what you were saying.
Correct.
These characters in this book, however, had a different experience.
Yes, they definitely had. And by virtue of the way the book opens up with this huge bust by the police, immediately puts that brand of bad on their lifestyle. And that theme then is continually throughout the book sort of brought back to them, is that regardless of who I am as a human being, I'm always going to be seen through society's lens as bad. So the San Francisco thing, and then from that point on, I think it's just more societal, because then I went to, of all places, Dallas, Texas.
Okay.
So then you can sort of do a segue stage left in that experience, and it still plays out today just like it was. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just funny. And then a funny little aside there, too, all the way back to the Boulder thing, because as I talk to you, I feel a lot of little golden threads that connect.
Yes.
So remember I was telling you that
Love the golden threads.
That summer in Germany with my bestie.
Yes.
Okay. So now I'm in Boulder, Colorado, and I'm very fortunate to be picked as a Rotary Scholarship awardee to spend, I think it was like 6 months, through my company, AT&T, to spend it in Finland.
Yes.
Yeah. And Rotary does these exchanges every year. They still do to this day with, different countries. And they'll take 5 professionals from one country, mash them up with 5 professionals from another country, and then they do a swap for that period of time. And what the attempt is to take your professional background, in my case it was telecom, and even though that was early telecom. And so AT&T happenstance to be doing some new partnerships with Nokia.
Finnish cell phones.
Bingo.
Yep.
So fast forward to my golden thread, there was a weekend that one of the host families that I was living with wanted to take me out to their summer cottage, which was kind of right on the border of Russia and Finland. It was very much in eastern Finland. Well, what I guess I didn't know, or it was last minute change of plans, the parents didn't go. But who did go was their 18-year-old kid, who invited 2 females to join us at said cottage for said experience.
Were you getting set up on a little date?
And so the reason I bring it up as a golden thread is I probably had one of the most difficult self-awareness moments in that moment. Because what ultimately I did, because at this point, the teenage son and his lady friend had disappeared into the night. Leftover lady friend and I, stalling. It's like, okay, finished TV has run off. It's 1 a.m. What the heck do I do now?
Parcheesi.
So what I just basically did was, and I don't know if I said to her that I'm gay. I think the way that I handled it was, this was just really such a fun weekend. It's so great meeting you and your friend, blah, blah, blah. And I said, but I just want you to know that I'm just really not comfortable making any assumptions that you and I should spend the night intimately.
Sure.
Now, keep in mind, she was a Finnish woman who probably didn't understand half of what I was saying. And so the body language had to be the deciding factor.
Oh, sure.
And as I was sort of giving her my English words, I'm kind of gently easing my way down and away from her on the couch.
Physically expressing what you're verbally expressing.
Let the nonverbal speak.
Yes. Ooh.
So anyway, that was that golden thread, because from the German experience with my bestie to now a foreign exchange experience, but in the professional sense, now finding myself in an uncomfortable mode where now I did know myself. Mm-hmm. I just couldn't. Mm-hmm. I just wouldn't, and I couldn't, from my head and my heart, make the choice to just do it, because that was what was expected.
Yes.
It just was not something that I wanted to do, nor did I feel inclined to do it. Again, making my own decision and choosing to stand by it regardless. So, whatever transpired the next day, I'm sure the ladies, probably back to Sonny Boy, had their stories to tell after I was, out of the picture, but I just didn't care.
Yeah.
Because I was good with myself.
You trusted your gut.
Yep.
You were like, I know who I am, and this is not going to...
And as family members will say, and I think I said it to you when we talked, my father used to have this great expression, and it just, again, this played it out perfectly. Ultimately, we go to bed at night with our own conscience. And that just was kind of one of those go to bed with my own conscience moments that I felt just fine making that decision. So anyway, wanted to share that piece.
Yes. To backtrack just a little bit here, to hear that you were living in San Francisco during the 80s and early 90s, knowing that was the advent and, what's the right word? I don't want to say the heyday of AIDS. But you lived in a certain historical... Yeah, the latter part of the AIDS epidemic was mid-'80s to early 90s, so the latter portion. Take us there in a historical sense. What's the... I think a big part of what this podcast aims to do is to record and give voice to those who were there. And every time I ask this question, take a shot. But what was it like? Well, I think that, again, one had to be self-aware to the extent that you kind of knew what your operating principles were as a human being. And regardless of what the sexuality drum might be beating in the moment, you kind of had to keep yourself top of mind with, well, what are the implications of a choice? Now, that sounds very academic and very clinical, and I agree. Clearly, one could be under the influence of alcohol. One could have been under the influence of drugs. Sure. Any number of circumstances surround having that clarity of thought. But I think you quickly recognized when you were in the company of different groups where people's heads and hearts were in those decisions. And I knew some of my friends were, to use the term, much looser than I was. They made choices that I don't just imagine that to this day maybe that they are still alive. I don't know for a fact. I do know several that did not survive. In fact, I had a gentleman that worked for me in the AT&T San Francisco experience who died. And I saw him the third day before he officially deceased when he was in San Francisco General Hospital. Just a shadow of the person he used to be. And so one would certainly see and recognize those, not bad word to use, those profiles of individuals
because it wasn't enough from sort of the vaccine, certainly, or AIDS meds, certainly, that, I'm identified, I'm diagnosed, oh, good, I'm on the meds. Most of them were still very much in the experimental stage, so you didn't really have any what I'll call profiles of what success looks like or what does good outcome look like. You had some that were in process of trials and could, in fact, make the case that, this medicine makes me feel better, or my blood count is looking this way, the white cells, red cells, blah, blah, blah. So there were what I'll call works in progress, but there was always that image. There was always that sort of thing that went with you, oh, you have AIDS. But then as a person who never had it, thank God, it became even more acutely aware for you if you choose to embark with someone to have to make some real-time, right-now choices. And if this is what this is going to play out to be, this is how the game is going to be played. And if you're not willing to play it that way, then I just don't think we're going to go that route. That's just not going to play out that way. And it became, I'm not going to say comfortable, because it was never comfortable, but it became acceptable to have the dialogue. At least in the circumstances that I found myself in, I never really found anybody who was vindictive. Yes, they were a little bit disappointed, and in many cases, so was I.
Yeah.
But I also said, but I'm also not willing to play by that lack of self-care, that lack of self-protection. I don't choose that path. I've seen too many examples, as we all have, of what those choices can be.
Yes.
And I don't think either of us want that. So, at least for me, that's not the way it's going to play out. Yeah. I can't, whatever you do after me is your thing.
Seeing it on the news, and you're learning what HIV AIDS is in real time.
Correct.
As other people, as the scientific community is as well. Is there a sense of paranoia, fear, or you kind of described it as, you didn't say the new normal, but...
Well, it became more mainstream, but I think certainly mainstream in the context of San Francisco and the Castro, which, of course, is where you went, where all the bars were.
A universe unto itself.
Right. And so I think that was one of the sort of aha moments, that living there in that period of time and then exiting stage left to go someplace else.
Dallas, Texas, no less.
Or even back to my home state of Michigan. There were just things that I just couldn't take for granted. And you just didn't. And you just wouldn't ever bring that up. I mean, yes, was the news media covering it all? Did everybody know what San Francisco stood for? Absolutely. It was not surprising to anybody to know what. But it wasn't the only story. I mean, there was lots of things. The tech revolution was just beginning to get implanted in San Francisco and then down to Silicon Valley. So that piece was just really getting...
Wow.
So you started to see the professional sort of enclaves begin to pop up while you had this whole medical HIV/AIDS thing happening in tandem. And then you had, come now work for AT&T, who, the telephone company, in air quotes, but... Certainly, I met lots of gay men, case in point, my one employee.
Yes.
In that capacity. And you kind of found this, I'll use your term, new normal, that you can have both worlds exist at the same time. That, and I'm looking at it through the professional lens, I can't be the gay party boy on Sunday tea dance different than the Monday morning guy back in my AT&T corporate life.
Yes.
Those two things, for my own sanity, have to find a way to harmonize. And so I think that became the way, not for everybody,
of
no
course.
way, but for, I think, the large portion of people who then later into the 90s started just realizing, new normal, this is a human condition.
Yes.
Because then more and more females were also discovering themselves, contracting HIV/AIDS. And so now it suddenly became no longer the stigma that just gay men, but people writ large who are not self-protective could end up having.
It is so interesting just to learn more and more about this, especially through the form of firsthand accounts.
Yeah. And
so I always try to get that recorded somewhere on the podcast. I'm like, what was it?
Well, and it's good. And there were a couple close calls that, I had to live with, as I think many of us did. But fortunately, again, they never manifested into anything other than just, I'm so glad that I took the time to be careful. And so, you bring that forward through the many, many years of learning, and you say, how close is too close in any kind of decision you make, And oftentimes, and I think this is the way society works, I can't just be sort of in a vacuum. I have to make some of my decision choices through your lens, through the society's lens. And I've said to people since I moved to Ann Arbor, and this is more of a political observation, but we live in a bubble here in Ann Arbor.
Oh my gosh.
There is no question we live in a bubble. And even to people that I will talk to elsewhere, I lived in Kansas City, Missouri for a while, working for Hallmark for 3 years.
Wow.
And you talk about a culture. But it's in those polarities of different lifestyles that I've had over the years that then I can turn the mirror inside out and look at me, I think, in a much better way. Because now I say the many faces, the many places that Barron has done, what he's done, are not dissimilar to society writ large.
Yeah, wow.
There's way that people assimilate. There's choices we make along the way. If we don't like them, we have the option to unchoose them, or we choose them, but then we learn to adapt. And I think that is the sort of golden thread throughout all of this for me, is learning, self-reflection, adaptation, and choices.
Whew. Yeah, let me jot that down real quick.
Hold that thought.
Yeah. And so you're living in Ann Arbor now. What eventually brought you here?
Well, my dad's family is all from Texas. My mom's family is from Michigan.
Okay.
And when I thought, after 45 years of being away, okay, where do I kind of want to retire? The R word.
Yeah.
Where do I want that to be? I thought, well, Michigan's probably, because I like the Michigan family, and I say this tongue-in-cheek, probably a little more than I like the Texas family. Like them.
Of course.
But like the Michigan ones a little bit better.
Yeah, I've had to choose.
And so when I started thinking about sort of the where that might be, I knew it wasn't going to be Metro Detroit, because I'd gone up there and I'd be like, it wasn't anything.
Been there, done that.
And there was just no economic decision. It was just, I just wasn't interested. I wanted something new. That's my nature, as you can certainly tell by all the places I've been. I like change. I like difference. So the first fantasy was Saugatuck.
Yes.
Because I'd been to Saugatuck.
Me too.
And I went, I'd like to be on water. This would be cool. So my cousin, who lives on the western side of the state, one of my many cousins, set me up with a realtor, and she came down and joined us, and we looked at a few places in Saugatuck. It was in June. Lovely. We're sitting out on the patio of some place one night overlooking the water in June and having wine. She says, now, I just want you to, spend a moment with me. She says, fast forward in your mind to February. She said, when this will be frozen, that'll be gray, half of these places will be closed, and you're going to be 45 minutes from any other kind of healthcare access. I want you to imagine that that's going to be the other part of what this is right now. So while I had a few choice words for her and told her she was a total buzzkill, I said, okay, I got it.
You're a little bit right, but...
Point taken, but man, what a bore.
Yeah, you got to kill the dream.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So anyway, we went through and then went to Grand Haven. I looked at Grand Rapids. And then ultimately I just said on a whim to another cousin that lives in Ann Arbor with her husband and kids, well, let's look at Ann Arbor.
Yes.
And it was just the aha moment. And I think for two reasons. One, I've always felt that university communities just have a lot going for them. They just do. There's just an energy, a vibe of something that is just inherent to being in university town. But coincidentally, there was a whole new set of condominiums being built wherein I could actually choose my floor plan, my counters, my floors, my cabinets, everything, So being that designer kid that used to move a living room furniture around as a kid, again, another full circle moment. It's like, oh, good, I can arrange my own condo now, yay. So I opted to buy that place.
Fabulous.
And became the first board association president for the first 2 years.
Very cool.
Yeah. And so now being here 7 years, last month, hard to believe, I can't say for a minute that I regret it.
Yeah.
It has been just the best choice on so many levels.
Ooh, that's got to feel good.
Well, it does. And I mean, it could have gone any direction. It could. I mean, that's called life, right? But it's about those choices you make and about the adaptability and just recognizing that I was coming to Ann Arbor at a stage of my own life is a retired senior person who still has way more energy than he probably deserves, as I've been told. Would you just take a chill pill for a while?
Oh, whatever.
But I just feel this is a good place for my energy at this stage of my life. And I was just at a university thing on Sunday and just thought, isn't this wonderful that I can just go to this event on a Sunday, and by the way, still have free parking on Sunday. Yes. See how long that lasts. Yeah. But just be able to be in a community that's afforded to me to be able to go to something.
Always something going on.
Yeah. And when I choose not to, I can also escape and not have to be a part of it. Yes. Kind of a thing.
That duality is important.
It is. And just knowing myself well enough that both of those have to coexist. Again, there's not one or the other.
No,
Are you exhausted yet?
Oh, no. I could do this all day, every day. And sometimes I do. But this is kind of my favorite question moving into the next portion is, what does your future look like? What's on the horizon?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you're loving every minute of watching me squirm and suffer. Well, there's the little picture, then there's the big pictures. I think one of the things, and this won't be new news to anybody that knows me, is I've always liked to know that wherever I'm living, I can leave it.
Yes.
And I can go someplace else. And that's still alive and well today. So what I've been exploring now that I've been in Ann Arbor is, so where would that place be? And I've been experimenting with a lot of different places, having been to all 50 states in the U.S., plus some of my, foreign experience. I've been to, I think, 44 countries now in the world.
Oh, my gosh.
Part of what I think I've come to terms with is I'm probably not going to be a second home dweller. Because, and it's not to say that that's not a good decision. My next door neighbors have a place in Florida. They're there now. They love the luxury of just saying, shut this door, go down there, spend the winter, shut that door, come back and spend the summer. They're very comfortable in that pattern. I think I enjoy it for the first 3 years or 4 years, and then I'd go, okay, what else is new?
Yeah.
But that's just me. And again, it's self-awareness, right? So I think for me, what's on the horizon is, so long as my health holds out, I'm going to continue to do multiple getaway experiences during the winter months. I just got back from Phoenix last month. I'm leaving for Hilton Head in 2 weeks.
Oh, geez Louise. Okay.
And what I'm trying to sort of come to terms with is, again, not because I'm going to buy in the future, but where are the things that I get my energy from? So if I do the Southwest, which is my preference, I just like, the desert, the dry air, the sort of just whole rough and tumble nature.
The energy.
Yes. Where if I do the water experience, Hilton Head, or I did Destin 2 years ago, water is a huge energy for me as well.
Me too.
And what all this says to me is I'm just self-reinforcing the fact that I am a Gemini and that I do have two sides to my brain. And it just all is a self-fulfilling prophecy by virtue of the way I make choices. Yeah. I'm fully cognizant of that.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of what that next generation looks like. Now, big picture, what I'd probably like to do is make a decision and probably have either Italian or somewhere Mediterranean place where I would spend a whole season.
Wow.
That's the big picture.
Oh, that's incredible.
So I have some very dear friends that live in Pleasant Ridge. They're right now at their second home in Palm Springs. But they want me to go with them because they're thinking of getting yet another place in Portugal. For this very reason.
Portugal's beautiful.
Well, I've been to Lisbon, but I've never been. So what we're thinking of doing, in fact, we've got it booked. Whether we're going to do it, we'll have to play out and see this fall, is we're going to do the Douro River Cruise, the Douro Wine River Cruise on the Douro River. But they're both realtors, so they're going to be using that lens while we're on this to be looking at sort of places to get
shopping as well.
As it were.
Yeah.
And so I said to them, okay, here's what I will commit to. Because, yes, I can help anybody spend money like the best in town. I'm all about opening your checkbook.
Yeah.
But I said I would not be unwilling to look at some places myself because, again,
Incredible.
if it's near water and it's got kind of that Latin feel, which Spain, Portugal, Italy, does,
Yep.
I said I'd be willing to look and see if there were seasonal condos to rent.
Yeah.
I said, y'all can buy, but I would probably just do a seasonal rental thing. So that'd probably be the next big thing beyond my sort of winters in the domestic United States is where would I go for full season and probably be summertime in that case. And do that. That would be the big sort of aha moment. And then sort of at a personal level, would I be open to a relationship if that were to play out? Which I know is really what you want to know. I know you're just waiting. You're just waiting.
I was enjoying the Portuguese real estate fantasy, but yeah, I want to know that too.
But that's where I think you have to sort of open yourself up to the possibilities.
Yes.
So am I at a certain age and I'm doing yes, yes, and yes. But along the way, I can't forecast what's going to happen when I leave here today with you.
Oh my gosh.
So
you never know.
So yes, there could be that right occurrence, that right circumstance, that right moment. In fact, the Belgian that I lived with and had a home with in San Francisco, he's back in France. He's lived there now for a few years. That could be another full circle moment.
I was going to say, that smells like a golden thread to me.
Yeah, I know. But again, that's a presumptive close. I just leave it open to whatever the cards and my Gemini personality are meant to deliver is what I'll be prepared for. And because I do admit that as a single person of a certain age in Ann Arbor, access to people is different. And that has been a learning experience for me as well. Thank heavens I have a very nice community where I live, and we're all pretty close. In fact, I'm doing happy hour with a couple of them the end of today. So that's a good network of people. And I think certainly having lived through COVID together, as we all did,
yes,
that sort of built that stronger bond because oftentimes we were the only people we had for a year and a half. But I think outside of that, trying to now say, gosh, I'm going to go to this meetup group, which I've done, and say, there I'm going to meet new people, and there I'm going to discover. I've done a couple of them, but they've been very, what I'll call, random and short term. And I think that's a play on both of us.
Yeah.
Because I think as any relationship should be, it can't just be one person to make it happen. You can only call so many times, you can only re-invite so many times, and then vice versa. And so I've not really found what I'm going to call the bond of human connection as strong here, but I've also recognized that, Barron, for heaven's sakes, you're 68 years of age. You're in Ann Arbor, Michigan. It's a youthful community of people. And so to think you're going to go find the next best thing for you, no. So I've got to leave it up to destiny, just like I left everything else in my life.
Yes.
Up to destiny. And if it's meant to be, it will be, kind of a thing.
And I think in general, especially after the pandemic, there's just an epidemic of loneliness at large.
Correct.
And people, there's a muscle that we're getting back in shape, which is how to meet people.
Right. And how
some of us don't have that problem. Some of us do.
Clearly, that's your strong suit. Clearly, yeah. And I agree. I think that's an absolutely true statement, that there are just certain personalities, and I don't want to easily box it the introverts, the extroverts, because I don't think that's it. I think that's too simplistic. I just think it's the nature of where do we find energy? Because I can be very, very comfortable sitting reading a book at home and gain energy from that. But it's not saying I'm doing that in deference to not having people or not going out and socializing. I could make that happen if I chose, but I'm just now at a place in life where I can find a nice balance with both.
Oh, how lovely.
And being able to feel okay with both of those scenarios. But if one were to come into my life where it's like, okay, now you got to step up, dude. You got to start kicking your heels again and playing that whole shtick. I think I could do it.
It's very exciting.
I think I could do it.
Yeah.
But it would just be a different kicking of the heels, than it was obviously 25, 30, 35 years ago. I mean, no duh,
It's, I'm not the wise, I have no wisdom, but maybe it's like riding a bike.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, yeah. I think that plays out in the moment. You kind of know it. and you just kind of go with it.
The magic of it.
Whatever it is.
Yes.
And I think that's just the way it is with friendships, period.
Yes.
No matter the case, no matter the sexuality, you recognize the peeps with whom you feel just good.
Oh, yeah.
You just feel okay. And others, not so much.
And it's just a thing that happens.
Right.
It's a thing that happens.
Yeah.
Something that we've done for all of our interviews so far is we ask the same set of kind of quick questions.
Lightning round.
Lightning round. But if it's not so lightning, that's okay too. But it's been so rewarding to hear from different answers from a group of people. So they range from silly to not so silly. So A Star is Born, Judy Garland, Barbra Streisand, or Lady Gaga?
Barbra Streisand.
Oh, gosh. I could say so much. But it's lightning. It's lightning. What's the biggest difference between younger and older LGBTQ folks?
Wisdom.
Ooh. What's the one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Have patience.
What do you feel about younger people using the word queer?
Uncomfortable.
Yeah. Ooh. What stereotypes about... Oh, I don't like that one. Have you ever used a dating site or app?
Yes.
It's the way of the world. Betty Davis or Joan Crawford?
Totally Betty. For me.
See, I can't do this lightning stuff because I'm just like, okay, wait. What makes you happy?
Talking.
What are you bringing to a potluck dinner?
Hors d'oeuvres or wraps.
Mm-hmm. What's your favorite fast food?
Salad.
What is your best Halloween costume?
Mr. Magoo.
I love Mr. Magoo. Who was your first celebrity crush? Jim Morrison.
Yeah,
we covered that.
I was going to say we've been there, done that.
Naturally. What part of aging has brought you the most joy?
Self-acceptance.
Hey, you survived the lightning round. I want to thank you so much for coming here and speaking with us. And it is such a big ask just to be like, so tell me all about you and then let me probe a little bit more. Yeah. So I'm just, I never know how to properly express my gratefulness. I just want to say thank you so much.
Well, Jacob, it's been a true delight. And I just can't tell you, like I said, when I was telling somebody I was doing this today, I said, I'm not really doing a podcast. I'm going to a therapy session. And I said, we'll see how it plays out when I'm done. Yeah. And so I'll say to you, as a compliment to you, that it's really been more a positive therapeutic podcast because you've helped me, hear things and resonate with myself, certainly in these great earphones, but also in a way that lets me go deeper into a place that just average conversation doesn't. Mm-hmm. So my appreciation to you for your time, your homework, and whatever magic you'll make out of this.
Well, thank you again, and you're so very welcome, and yes.
We'll do it. Thanks.
For more podcasts like this, visit aadl.org.